And I'd like also to thank you for inviting me to take part in this event. This has been quite a rare activity for me. I haven't been to Jerusalem in a long time, and today, after having passed through the hassle of going through Colombia, I'm not sure that I'll be coming easily to Jerusalem again. Well, the question raised, to be raised here is Palestinian state building, what remains to be done? I must react instantly to the question by saying that a lot has been done, but still a lot remains to be done. Palestinian state building efforts have certainly achieved a lot during the past few years, few meaning about maybe 10 years or 7 to 8 years. That's after, basically, after Mahmud Abbes and Salam Fayyad took over around 7 years ago. The main change is their departure from armed struggle as a main vehicle for transition from a liberation movement to a peaceful and civil entity. I mean, there are many other changes, like my friend Mariam has alluded to, but if I am, as a Palestinian, to point to one major change, strategic change, it is this change, that both gentlemen have got this happy marriage, that both of them don't believe in armed struggle as a means of achieving our national aspirations. There are other forms of struggle, but not clearly this process has resulted in enormous consequences in many directions. Most importantly, ending lawlessness and chaos in the West Bank and Gaza, which reached incredible levels in the aftermath of the Second Intifada. I mean, most Palestinians have got many reminiscences from those days, and these were very, very bitter years, which we don't look forward to repeat. Parallel to this central achievement, the Abbes-Fayyad regime has also succeeded in building almost a full range of service institutions which are needed for a modern state. I don't have to repeat what my friend Mariam said, but it was really an impressive CV for the PA. Here we talk about health, education, power, and water networks, in addition to a host of other service institutions. But probably most importantly, the Palestinian Authority has managed to nurture some fundamental features of a real democracy, characterized by a vibrant civil society and almost unrestricted freedom of expression. It is, in fact, widely recognized in our country, at least, and in several other neighboring countries, that in many ways, Palestine enjoys a better level of democracy than probably all other Arab countries. I spent many years of my life in Lebanon, which is a particularly democratic country, but I must say that Palestine is probably better than Lebanon in terms of the quality of its democracy. Just one bypassing outcome of this fact is that we are not going to subscribe to this phenomena of Arab Spring in a negative way. I don't think that we never had, during the past 7 years, any kind of a totalitarian regime which prevented people from getting out their views or emotions in any direction. Another achievement for the PA, which is a quality achievement, there are many other achievements, is that relating to governance. Again, there have been several reforms made. My friend Mariam has listed many of them, especially with regard to transparency in the PA's fiscal policies, which was a 180 degrees U-turn compared to the early years of the PNA, Palestinian National Authority. You know, in the first 5-6 years, things were really, really nasty in terms of fiscal management. Okay, another achievement, laws and regulations, you know, I mean, all kinds of legal frameworks which pertain to a modern entity, state or not state, including the establishment of many oversight institutions. Most recently, we have got an ACC institution, Anti-Corruption Commission. Quite an impressive one, and at least in terms of law, which governs the ACC and its mandate and so on. It is therefore no surprise that the World Bank identifies Palestine in one of its publications as the best of all countries in the MENA region in terms of the level of conventional forms of corruption, i.e. bribery. I saw the list, and we were at the bottom of the list in about 20 countries or so. Well, that's impressive, you know. That says something to the two gentlemen. Yet, with all these achievements in terms of governance, I think we don't have to congratulate ourselves too much. We do understand there are still some important deficiencies, and I think again, you know, if I keep saying that, Miriam said that, please excuse me, because I talk about the expert on this, the one who is after writing reports, after studies, so we have to rely on what they publish and certainly now what they say. So yes, there are still some deficiencies in terms of governance. I may dare say some important deficiencies, especially in relation to public sector institutions. Miriam alluded to one of them. The size of public sector is really outrageous. See, and Salam Fayyad, only yesterday in one of his major speeches, I said, well, we inherited this, and we have to cope with it. We have to do something about it. Okay. Now, one other important deficiency is the very weak performance of oversight institutions, especially after the paralysis which inflicted the Palestinian Legislative Council. If I'm to be asked, what is the worst development, socio-political development, which the Palestinians have experienced during the past 10 years, I would say the paralysis of the Legislative Council. Weak as it was, I mean, compared to our aspirations, of course, I think it was far, far better than having none, and certainly far more effective than what we see in Arab countries around us. But now, we have no legislative council. But you have to remember that each single member in the legislative council costs the taxpayers in Palestine close to $6,000. And we still pay them for an assignment which they don't do. I just can't understand how both factions in the PLC would agree to this. I mean, if we take about poor governance, is that good governance? What prevents the Legislative Council in Palestine from exercising its role, whether they are Fatah or Hamas, from doing what it's supposed to do in terms of oversight? So now we have got two major functions paralyzed, namely legislation, and Mahmud Abbes is in a difficult corner. He knows that there are so many legal frameworks that have to be passed, except that he can't do it. See, because there is no legislative council. And oversight, there's no oversight. I mean, PLC oversight. There are other bodies which do that. but the Legislative Council is for them. Okay, while the progress towards state building has gone a long way ahead, we still don't have a state. I may dare to say that there isn't one in the pipeline in the near future. So there are obstacles to this, and the main obstacle, I think, I mean, many obstacles, and I can't avoid talking about, a little at least, about the politics of this. The main obstacle relates to the deep-rooted negative mindset on the Israeli side relative to having another state on what is most Israelis call Eretz Israel, and we call Palestine. I mean, Israelis, most Israelis just can't understand or welcome, certainly they wouldn't welcome having another state on a land which nearly all of them say this is Eretz Israel. I think this lies deep at heart as a major impediment to arriving to the two-state solution. This stand has been translated during the past 45 years into a wide range of concrete policies, whether during the Labor days or during the Likud or during the other subsequent governments. And the end result of those policies, Israeli policies, is that Palestinian state option now is not a viable option. I think most Palestinians don't take that seriously as a real option, two-state solution. In this context, Israeli authorities have, in the context of negating the two-state option, because this was a deliberate, conscious effort. I mean, undoubtedly. In this context, Israeli authorities, all authorities, not only Likud, have resorted to a wide range of measures, which have resulted in basically in the usurpation of all facets of sovereignty in the Palestinian territories. Most importantly, Israel has fostered total control on practically all natural resources, i.e. land and water, I mean, most importantly. For instance, Area C, which already comprises, in the Oslo Agreement, around 60% of the West Bank land, is being rendered increasingly inaccessible to Palestinians. Originally, it wasn't supposed to be inaccessible in Oslo. It was pretty much accessible. But under the security sovereignty of Israel, and settlement sovereignty, I mean, not only security, so they could use it. But as far as Palestinians and the residents, because you talk about nearly 500 villages located in Area C, and they have a lot of agriculture, a lot of industry, a lot of business. So that was permitted all during the past 20, 30 years, but more recently things have changed. The change now is so drastic that there are very red lights coming out from Israel. Most recently, in a kibbutz bordering the North Jordan Valley, just outside the border in the Jordan Valley, there's a kibbutz with name X. Israel has allowed the kibbutz to annex land within the Green Line, which is owned unequivocally by Palestinians. This is the very first time Israel permits that. That should ring a bell. The security wall has banned access to considerable land which is also classified A, especially in the northwest West Bank, near Hadera and Netanya. Not near Turkana. Access of farmers to their land located close to settlements has become a big problem. So this is land which has been accessible, and it is classified even as B, because it is close to a settlement. You know, I mean, you all must have read during the olive picking season about, you know, what Palestinians exercise during those 2 months of picking olives. And in addition to the steady usurpation of land, Israel continues to tighten its grips on water resources. And it's not only land. The Palestinians in the state to be are permitted minimal access to their water resources. Of course, one can understand that shared resources, I mean, this is, we should understand, we do understand that the aquifer in the West Bank is a common aquifer that should be shared by its owners, i.e. the Palestinians and the Israelis. Shared, but not taken by force, by one party. Now, okay, the facts on the ground say that the Palestinians get much less than is reasonably fair share of their water resources. Just enough for subsistence purposes, whether domestic purposes or agricultural purposes. And the rest, which is close to 85%, goes to Israel. One other drastic obstacle to the state building process is that relating to mobility of goods and persons. Restrictions on mobility have been repeatedly identified by the World Bank, most recently 10 minutes ago, as a major impediment to genuine growth, let alone national sovereignty. Roadblocks and excessive security checks on border points with Jordan, border points with Egypt, and border points with Israel, have resulted in devastating consequences on the competitiveness of Palestinian firms in domestic and external markets. How could you access external markets? Not even domestic markets. You know, like I was saying in the Hebron conference just 4 days ago, a truckload of grapes from Hebron to Jenin or Tulkarem would cost probably more than the sale proceeds of the truck, because the truck has to pay so much additional expenses, which make the whole transaction unreasonable. See? How about sending a truckload of grapes then to Amman? No wonder that this kind of trade has practically stopped many years ago. So distortions in trade constitute a very serious impediment to statehood. Now, bilateral trade between the two sides is tightly controlled by Israel in view of complex economic and political considerations. It's not only security. In Oslo and in Paris, we thought it was only security checks because trade was free, supposedly free. Now we know much better than that. We know that it is not only security. It is a whole web of interests which are always evaluated by one side. So instead of serving as a major form of cooperation, bilateral trade used as a tool of exercising hegemony by one side over the other. Consequently, trade deficit with Israel is huge. I mean, huge Palestinian standards. Huge. It's in excess of $3 billion. It's about 70% of our GDP. So the deficit is again, using World Bank language, is unsustainable. And it's going larger and larger all the time. So Israel's stand on the PA's custom proceeds also constitutes another humiliating restriction on statehood. We talk about statehood. The money, this source of income, provides 2/3 of the PA's budget resources. Again, that was mentioned by Salam Fayyad yesterday. That 2/3 of income. Israel's, this has been used at will and for political purposes, and in order to extort political concessions from the Palestinian side. In view of all of these transformations on the ground, the talk about statehood is simply now unreal, because I don't at all foresee a major change in any of the directions outlined earlier. No Palestinian regime no matter what political color it has, will accept a Swiss cheese type of a state. And this is ridiculous and unacceptable. Not surprisingly, therefore, many Palestinians now are in favor of one-state solution. It was really telling a lot to see a major event in Ramallah yesterday, the day before yesterday, but it was reported in Al-Quds yesterday extensively, advocating one-state solution by high-profile Palestinian political activists, openly, out of the box, like they say, saying goodbye to state solution. What's wrong? That's how they argue. What's wrong with one-state solution? And it was covered extensively in Al-Quds, which again sends another message. I guess the PA must have read this, and probably, I can't speak for the PA, but that is a major development which reflects how Palestinians feel about two states, one state solutions. So I think no matter what, I don't think that a state solution is reasonable as an outcome, as a solution to the endemic conflict in the foreseeable future. I think most Israelis don't like it. I think probably most Palestinians don't like it. I can't speak for, I can't claim that most Palestinians don't like it. Really. Maybe it's a matter of 1 year that most Palestinians will like it, I think. Because of what the Israelis are doing with the ground. How could any sensible person talk about a two-state solution anymore? See? Not that we don't want a Palestinian state, but what is the state? See? So, what's the conclusion? I think we are going to end up with no two-state solution, with no one-state solution for several years to come. We'll probably end up with just an extension of the present situation in various forms. Maybe it will change here and there, but that's how things will look like. Now, in the meantime, how do the Palestinian political activists, I don't speak for the PA, certainly not. But I think I represent a wide spectrum of the ordinary Palestinians, and even Palestinian intelligentsia. I think that most Palestinians don't think too much about neither the one state or the two state solution. They have got other more important things to think about. Really, a lot more important. We think about how to improve living conditions in Palestine. How could we create more jobs? How could we improve living standards so that Palestinians stay on their land? To us, this is this is the highest priority. The highest priority. Just to make sure that Palestinians stay on their land and let history do its course. See, I think here we have using Egypt's kind of polls, a 99% vote on the Palestinian side. Palestinians don't disagree on this. We don't. The bad old days when we thought that we belong to the Arab world are gone. We don't belong to the Arab world. We belong to Palestine. We want to stay with Palestine. But then we need jobs. We need to live like human beings. And that is not taken for granted at all. So I think this is one. But two. It's just two items on this agenda of survival. The other item is that we want a democratic entity in Palestine. We are proud of what we have, and we want to maintain it as it is, even improve on it. Certainly we have improved on it. We have learned a lot in the past, but more recently we have got even more lessons to learn from what is going on in the Arab world. And we want a prosperous Palestinian society and a democratic Palestinian society. Now, clearly, achieving progress in this direction bears heavily on the full spectrum of relations between Israel and Palestine. That's the beginning. That's point number one. We cannot go very far in achieving improvement in living standards. Democracy, Israel has nothing to do there. But when we talk about living standards, per capita income, and employment, Israel has a lot to do. I think that the questions of resources, access to resources, mobility issues, and trade have to be revisited. We Palestinians, especially those who debate the socio-political, economic issues, are now of the opinion that we have to revisit the agreements concluded with Israel in Oslo and Paris. I mean, there is, by the way, this has become recently a live file in Palestine, a very live file. It's amazing. So much so that one would say, oh, maybe somebody is conspiring to make this, again, a live file. I don't think that there's any conspiracy involved, but it just makes sense. I mean, we talk about an agreement which was concluded in early 1994, and in the meantime, a lot has changed, and it just makes sense to restructure the agreement, but on very different grounds. Let me say up front that we talk and we should talk about an equitable agreement and about a situation where both sides are winners. Of course we have got hard feelings, of course, and we are only human beings. But in the end, if we are to reopen negotiations with Israel on economics and other related relations, because we have a lot on the agenda, I think both sides have to come out as winners. I don't know how they come winners politically, but I know that both can come winners economically. I think there is a lot between the two sides which probably would qualify them to make a success story rather than one ending as a winner and the other as a loser. But this kind of negotiations, dear friends, have to be fair. In the Paris Economic Protocol, two members on both sides are present in this room. My dear, very dear friend Efraim Kleiman, and myself. It was quite an experience because we were friends years before that as well. So here we are on the two sides of the table, not on one side in Paris. I think the basic problem there is that it was imposed, it was pushed through our throat in a way that take it or leave it. It was very clear on nearly all issues. On nearly all issues, it was a take it or leave it. I think that was grossly unfair, and if we talk about another round of negotiations, they should not be a replicate of Paris. We have to have something which is far more equitable, and it has to be overlooked by a third party. Now, a third party evidently should be a fair third party, and there are plenty around, excluding Mr. Tonner. That's not. We Palestinians have hard feelings. I think that the whole concept of the quartet gives us some headache, and I don't know. We talk with a lot of bitterness about the role of the quartet, but in the end, we do believe that we have to have a third party, not only during the upcoming negotiation process, but also when implementing what was negotiated and concluded with Israel. Okay, I would like to conclude by just a few notes on one other major issue. We talked about Israel and the relations with Israel as being a heavyweight parameter in terms of economic growth and prosperity in the West Bank and Gaza. But there is one other, probably as important, probably even more important than our Israeli economic relations, and i.e. donors, the donor community. We're a country which receives a lot of money by way of grants from the international community. We do understand that there is no free lunch. We understand that very, very well. So nobody is doing us any favor by giving us grants. And we don't have to pay that. But we get a lot of grants. And I think without the money we get from donors, Palestine will be a very, very depressing country. Very depressing. And that will not serve the interests of any side, especially Israel. See? So we appreciate the grants. We are grateful. We think that they should continue, but we have two problems. A, the management of grants. You know, we receive a lot of advice and preaching from the donors about the need to improve governance in Palestine. And we believe that. We believe it. We firmly believe it. And we have done a lot to improve governance. But like they say in English, charity begins at home. If we are advised by donors to improve on governance, transparency, accountability, I think that donors should do the same. Well, I'm not at all, not in the least, trying to be negative or bitter, but definitely there is room for improvement. And again, I must say that the World Bank mission is doing a lot, really, a lot. And IMF, I don't know if IMF is represented in this room or not. IMF is also doing a lot. But even with what these friends are doing, we are unhappy about the management of much of aid. If I say that in terms of efficacy, that aid that filters out to the ultimate beneficiaries is probably equal to 50%, I think the development activists in Ramallah would probably characterize me as ignorant. They would certainly give a figure of much less than 50%. Much less than 50% of aid gets out to its ultimate destination. I don't want to argue this. I don't want to even to suggest that it is 50%. But at least it reflects one thing, that we suspect that there are real problems in terms of aid management. And because aid is so important to us, so crucial, that we are very eager to improve on governance in aid. And Miriam and friends and other friends in the international community are giving us a strong hand in this connection. I would like to conclude by saying that the PA has done a lot, but there is a lot more to be done, a lot more to be done. Especially, I haven't talked, now I manage something called Palestine Governance Institute. And I'm supposed to talk a lot about the private sector, except I said nothing. I tell you, the private sector in Palestine is supposed to be the vehicle of growth. And so far, this vehicle needs a lot to take off. It didn't take off. If the time comes that the Palestinian private sector takes off, everybody will be surprised by the enormous vibrance of the Palestinian business community. You will be surprised. Everybody will be surprised. The Israeli business community is a strange creed of business people. The Kuwaitis brag themselves always, ironically enough, as being the Jews of the Gulf. I don't know what does that mean. I don't know. But they always, we are the Jews. But we are not the Jews of the Arab world. But certainly when the time comes that the Palestinian business community is unleashed on fair grounds, we will do a good job. Thank you, and thanks for the occasion.
Thank you very much.